Hello everybody, this is City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made using the My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit for May. I started off this layout using a sheet of white cardstock. This is a lightweight cardstock, I think it's 80 pounds. And I drew two diagonals from corner to corner. And then I took some strips of paper, and these pieces of paper are branding strips and extra scraps of paper from the Simple Vintage Cottage Fields collection that was in the May kit. The majority of these strips were cut to 1/2 inch in width. Some of them are a little bit thinner and a little bit thicker, but they're all approximately the same width. So you can see here that I'm alternating sides and I'm putting down the strips of pattern paper, and I'm trying to alternate between different colors and solids and patterns and just spreading out all of the different patterns, just trying to create a balanced look. So I'm going to be creating two triangles, one on either side, and I'm not going to be leaving them whole. I'm going to be cutting them into pieces, and you'll see that in a little bit. Right now I am deciding which strips of paper I think would be best to finish off the inside of this triangle. And you could see that I have some strips that are shorter, so I tried to use those toward the end when I didn't need such long strips. Now that all of the pattern paper strips are attached down, I'm going to be cutting off the edges, and I started it with my scissors, but I finished it with my trimmer. And I am going to be using quite a few of those strips of paper that I cut off on the other triangle. And you can see here I have completed the second triangle, and then I do the same thing. I just cut off those strips, this time with my scissors. Now I'm cutting the triangle up into two triangles. The reason for that is that I wanted to slightly offset them, and I've done other layouts where I had the two triangles very symmetrical meeting in the center. I just thought I would slide one of them up a little bit and one of them down a little bit, and that would just create a little bit of a different look for this layout. I traced around the outside of each of those triangles with my pencil, and that gives me an idea of where to put the sprays that I'm going to be putting down. I use some Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists, and I also used a Nuvo drop mica spray. And I'm using some pink because there's a lot of pink in a lot of different shades in the pattern papers. So I'm trying to mirror that on the background. I have a very light pink, and then I have this deeper pink. And then I'm also using some teal. And initially, those were the two colors that I was thinking I would use in the background. So you see here, I'm just using the packaging technique, and I'm placing those triangles back on top just to make sure that I like the way that it looks. And I'm going to be adding several layers of the color. And there I sprayed the colors on one piece of plastic, and then I used another piece of plastic because there was so much spray on the first piece of plastic that I didn't want to dump all of that on my layout at once. And I use several different colors of both the pink and the teal. And the majority of them are the Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists. I have a lot of those. I got them a long time ago on sale at Tuesday Morning, and I love them, and I use them on so many of my layouts. I have them in so many different colors, having collected them over a fairly long period of time. So now I'm going back in with this little sponge and some heavy gesso. And the reason for that is that although these really bright colors are beautiful, I don't want the background to overpower the pattern papers. So I want the background to kind of stay a little more muted. And so that's where this gesso comes in. And the nice thing about gesso is that it can fade things out, but it doesn't have to totally cover the color unless you want it to. And then you can put more thick layers on. But if you just want it to fade a little bit, you can just put on maybe one or two very light coats of gesso. And each coat you put on will cover the color up a little bit more. And I like having that control and being able to just apply the color and then decide later on how much intensity of color I want there to be. I didn't include all the footage of me covering up some of the color with the gesso because on this particular layout it went on for quite a while. You could see that at a certain point I switched over to a paintbrush, and that just allows you to add thicker coats of the gesso. Then I was thinking that I needed to add some yellow to the background. I just kind of felt like a color was missing and I decided that it was yellow. So I got out some yellow spray and just added a little bit of it. And I tried to go very light with the yellow because I didn't want to have to add more gesso, so I just applied that very lightly. And now I'm adding some white splatters to the background, and those white splatters are just watered down white acrylic paint. And the white splatters are kind of a standard thing that I always seem to add when I do mixed media backgrounds. I just love the way that it looks. So I add them all over, and then I add a few black splatters. There's a lot of black in this collection, so I wanted to make sure that I connected the pattern paper with the background, so I wanted to add a decent number of black splatters because of course a lot of this gets covered up, and I also wanted the splatters to be very small, so I made a lot of very small splatters. And now I'm using some gesso and a paintbrush to go in and just kind of clean up some of the areas where I wanted there to be a little bit of color, but I didn't want as much as there was. And in the final layout, you can see how there's still a decent number of splatters all over the backgrounds, but I just wanted to just make this look a little tiny bit neater. I like messy, but I like it to kind of be a neat messy. And then I decided that I wanted to mount these triangles on some black paper and just create a very, very thin border of black along the edge. And I'm just using some papers that were intended for use in photo albums, but I know I won't use them for that purpose, so I thought this would be perfect. So you could see that I am just creating a very thin border and then using my scissors to cut away the excess. And I like the way this very thin black border helps to create some contrast between the triangles and the background and makes the triangles stand out. So now I am all set and finally attaching down those triangles to the background using some ATG adhesive. And I'm just following those lines that I made earlier, and here I am just cutting off the excess triangle. I'm going to be using two small rectangular photos for this layout, and both of the photos are of my two daughters. These photos were taken on a trip that my husband and my younger daughter and I made to visit my older daughter when she was still in college in northern New York. And my older daughter took us to a sushi place that had sushi burritos, and they were awesome. I don't know if you're a sushi fan, but if you are, I would definitely be on the lookout for sushi burritos. They were quite good. Now I'm taking a large number of fussy cut pieces. There was a piece of pattern paper in the kit, and it had many, many images of flowers and leaves, so I cut out a whole bunch of the flowers, and I'm going to be using those. And in addition, I'm going to be using the dimensional Prima flowers from the kit as well. And I used a pink, an off-white, and a blue dimensional flower in each of those two large clusters. And then you can see here that I'm taking the flowers that I fussy cut and I'm layering them next to and beneath the dimensional flowers. And I always like that combination of the fussy cut or the die cut flowers and the dimensional flowers. I'm going to be putting some photo corners on all the corners of both photos. I use some yellow ones on the photo on the right, and I'm going to be using some light blue photo corners for the photo that's on the left. And you can see here that I am inking the edges of them using some Distress Oxide in black soot. And then I'm going to start a cluster up on the top that has the title, and the title is going to be Joy. And that is a sticker. There was a sticker sheet that was in the collection. There were so many things in the collection. I didn't even make a dent in that sticker sheet. I did use this, but there were most of the stickers left when I had finished making all of the layouts that I made for this month. I'm going to have to go back and make a few more layouts because there were more pattern papers, and that was a really beautiful sticker sheet. But I did end up using some of the flower stickers. Here I am fussy cutting off the white border that was on this flower sticker, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to arrange some of these embellishments by the title Joy. And you could see there that that title is very pretty. It's just the right color. It goes with the layout. But because I have everything backed in black on the layout, the title really doesn't stand out. So I will address that a little bit later. Right now I'm adding some adhesive foam to the back of some of those fussy cut pieces, and then I'm using some ATG adhesive to attach them, and I'm just fitting those into those large clusters. And some of the fussy cut pieces I pop up on foam, and some of them I don't. And I'm using some ATG adhesive to attach the flowers down, but that's just really temporary because they won't stay secured down to the page with just ATG adhesive. I have to use some wet glue of some kind. And I do end up using some heavy duty matte gel medium, and that attaches them down permanently. So I'm continuing to work on those layers of flowers, and you could see here that I'm popping up that white one on some foam. The one behind it I did not pop up on foam, and I like the way popping some up on foam and not popping some up on foam adds to the dimensional look of the layout, and it makes it more interesting. I am arranging and rearranging those flowers over and over again. I couldn't decide exactly how I wanted them, and that's kind of seemed to be a theme with this layout. I finally decided where I wanted all of those dimensional flowers, and then I started fussing with the butterflies and with the cluster at the top where the title is. So I did a lot of moving around of things on this layout, probably because there were so many little pieces. So I really couldn't decide which butterflies I wanted on the bottom. And one thing that I will say is, once I moved that larger butterfly that has a lot of black on it over to the left and made it touch the triangle, that's when I started feeling that it looked a little bit better. And then I did the same thing with the title up on top. I haven't done it yet, but I will move it over to the right so that, there we go, so that it is touching the triangle. And I feel like when things are connected, I feel like that oftentimes, there's no hard and fast rules, but oftentimes connecting those elements can kind of bring the whole layout together and just make it look more finished to me. Now I'm adding some pearls. I had run out of adhesive pearls in a very small size, so I bought some from Etsy. These are a little less white than I normally use, but I think they worked fine with this particular collection. So I'm putting a very small pearl in each of the four corners of each photo. And this is where I decided that I was going to have to mount this title on some black cardstock. It was just never going to be equal in interest to the other elements that were on the page because of the fact that many of them are mounted on black paper and the Joy wasn't. And once I got that border around the title, I liked it so much better. And then I also thought it would make sense to pop it up on some foam so it would be a little bit more prominent, and then also I could more easily layer those flowers underneath it. So I used a lot of little pieces of foam, and I covered the whole back of the title, and now I'm attaching it up on the top. And in addition to the flowers that I'm using up there, I have that little butterfly, and I'm also using a little heart, and that was from the die cut pack. I felt that there was a little something missing from the layout, and I decided that it could use some leaves. Since the scale of the flowers, especially those dimensional flowers, is on the slightly larger side, I didn't want to use a really, really tiny leaf. I wanted the size of the leaves to go with the flowers, so I found a die in my stash that I thought was a good size, and I die cut out a whole bunch of leaves. I die cut those on some white 80-pound smooth cardstock, and that's the same cardstock that I used at the beginning of the video when I mounted the strips of paper on some background paper. So I use the same paper for that. And then after that, I used some watercolor sprays, and I picked out some shades of yellow and green, and I used those to color the white die cut leaves. So now I'm adding the leaves to the layout, and you can see that I'm really just adding them to the clusters, putting them around the flowers, both the die cut flowers and the dimensional flowers. And I was happy with the way that little addition made the layout look. Even though the scale of the flowers and the leaves is really large, I want to have some small, more delicate little touches on the layout. So I added a very small pearl to those two hearts. There's one on the bottom in yellow and one on the top in pink. And I want to make sure that everything is securely attached to the page at this point. I use a little bit of gel medium to attach down that chipboard piece that says always, and I also used it to attach down the flowers off camera. And then I'm just using a little Elmer's gel glue to attach down the leaves that I just added to the layout. And I put a little bit of it at the base of those self-adhesive pearls, and that way I have a little bit of added insurance that those pearls won't later fall off the page. So this is the last touch to this layout, and it's complete. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope that if you like this video, you'll give it a thumbs up. Please take a look in the description box. You'll find the link to the My Creative Scrapbook website, and you can see all of the beautiful kits they have this month that are available. And this is the limited edition kit. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I hope that you will join me again soon, and I'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.